The 7 members of the High Council watched from their elevated platforms. Their scaled skin reflected the soft blue light of the chamber. Day approached the center circle and bowed deeply. "Rise, Commander," said Council Leader Nari. Her voice was gentle but carried authority that silenced the whispers among the observers. "You requested this special meeting. Speak your purpose." Day straightened his tall frame. "Honorable Council, I bring evidence of a weapon that once saved a civilization from total destruction. A weapon we desperately need now." He activated the small device in his lower right hand. The air above the center circle shimmered, and a 3-dimensional image appeared. It showed strange ruins covered in symbols that no living being had used for centuries. "These are from the final days of Ardania," Day explained, "before the first Void Horde invasion destroyed their world." Councillor Tay leaned forward, his old eyes narrowing. "The Ardanians have been dust for 500 years, Commander. What could they possibly offer us now?" "Hope," Day replied simply. He adjusted the device and the image changed to show ancient writing. "My team has finally translated their last records. They speak of a powerful ally that helped them fight the Void Horde, something called human." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Day waited patiently for order to return. "Humans are myths," said Councillor Min, her voice sharp with dismissal. "Children's stories to frighten the young. Be good or the humans will get you. Surely you don't waste our time with fairy tales." Day had expected this. Without responding, he changed the image again. Now it showed a strange bipedal creature, standing beside an Ardanian. The creature had no scales, no protective outer shell, no extra limbs. It looked fragile, almost unfinished. "This," Day said, "is a human." The council chamber grew completely silent. According to the records, humans were not from our part of space. They came from a distant arm of the galaxy. The Ardanians encountered them by chance, just before the Void Horde attacked. These humans helped create defense strategies that held off the Horde for years, giving most Ardanians time to escape. "If these humans were so effective," Councillor Tay asked, "why did Ardania still fall?" The records say the humans were few in number. Only a small group had traveled to Ardanian space. But the records also contained coordinates to the human homeworld. Now the chamber exploded with voices. Some shouted questions, others called it nonsense. Council Leader Nari raised one slender arm and silence returned. "Commander Day," she said, "you know that 3 outer colonies have fallen to the new Void Horde in the past month alone. Our best fleets cannot stop them. If you truly believe these humans could help us, why bring this to open council? Why not speak privately?" Day's outer membrane shifted color slightly, showing his respect. "Because I need a ship, resources, and permission to travel beyond our known space. And because our people deserve to know there might be hope. Or you might lead your crew to death chasing ghosts," said Minday nodded. "Yes, that is possible." The council members looked at each other. Day could see them using their connection fields to communicate privately. After several moments, Nari spoke again. "The situation grows worse daily. Our traditional defenses fail against the Void Hordes. New tactics, perhaps?" She hesitated. "Perhaps it is time for desperate measures." She stood, which was rare during council meetings. "Commander Day, you are granted the research vessel Seeker and permission to form a small team. You will investigate these coordinates. If you find nothing, you will return immediately. And if we find humans," Day asked, "then you will request their aid, if they are, as the stories say. But remember, Commander, mythology often exaggerates. These humans, if they exist, may not be the weapons you expect." Day bowed deeply. "Thank you, Council Leader." As he left the chamber, young Officer June approached him. Her excitement was visible in the rapid shifts of her membrane color. They, too, approved our mission, she said, keeping her voice low. "I can't believe it." "Believe it," Day replied. "Select your best science team. Officer Han will handle security." "Do you really think we'll find them? The humans?" Day looked at the small data crystal containing the coordinates. "I do. But Council Leader Nari is right about one thing. They may not be what we expect." "What do you mean?" "The Ardanian texts don't call humans weapons," Day said quietly. "That was my simplification for the Council. The texts call them the Great Survivors, the impossible species. And there's one more thing the texts mention that I didn't tell the Council. What's that? June asked. The Void Horde fears them. That's why they targeted Ardania so completely. They wanted to destroy any trace of human influence in our galaxy. June's membrane paled. Then our mission is more dangerous than anyone knows, Day finished. And more important, prepare the ship. We leave at first light. Remember the rules for sighting. If your response uses information from the web, make sure to properly cite all claims with tags. The stars look different in this part of space. Day stood on the bridge of the Seeker, watching unfamiliar constellations through the main viewport. They had been traveling for 30 days, following coordinates that were centuries old. "Commander," called Science Officer June from her station. "The star patterns match the ancient maps. We are approaching the target system." The crew grew quiet. Even after all this time, many believed they were on a fool's mission. Hunting for creatures of legend seemed like madness when the Void Horde destroyed Confederate worlds back home. Tactical Officer Hahn looked up from his displays. No signs of advanced technology or defense systems. If these humans were great warriors, wouldn't they protect their home? "Perhaps they are gone," June said softly. "The Ardanian records are 5 centuries old." Day nodded. "Or perhaps they hide. Slow our approach, full scans of the system." The Seeker dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 8 planets orbited a yellow star. The third from the center caught everyone's attention. Immediately. "Commander," June whispered, her membrane turning pale blue with shock. "The third planet. It's blue and green, liquid water, atmosphere with oxygen. It matches the description of Earth from the records." "Life signs?" Dai asked, trying to keep his voice steady. June adjusted her instruments. "Abundant plant and animal life, but—" She paused. "Very few signals that would indicate advanced civilization. Nothing like what we would expect from a spacefaring species." "Could they be extinct?" Hahn asked. Dai stared at the beautiful blue world growing larger on the screen. "Let's find out. Prepare a landing team." The shuttle descended through wispy, white clouds. Below them, vast green forests covered what had once been cities. Crumbling towers poked through the trees like the bones of ancient giants. "These structures," June said, pointing at the ruins, "they were made for beings much smaller than us." The shuttle landed in a clearing near what appeared to be a large complex partially buried in a hillside. Heavy metal doors stood open as if whatever had once lived here had left in a hurry. Day led the team inside, their lights cutting through darkness undisturbed for centuries. The corridors were designed for creatures smaller than the Confederate team. They had to duck through doorways and bend to read the strange symbols on the walls. "These match the writing in the Ardanian records," June said excitedly. "This is definitely a human facility." They moved deeper into the complex. Most rooms held only dust and broken equipment. In one large chamber they found rows of small seats facing a wall where faded images still clung to a board. "A teaching place," June guessed. "For young ones." Hahn examined a small desk. "These humans must have been about half our size. How could such small creatures be the weapons we seek?" Day didn't answer. Something was pulling him forward, a feeling he couldn't explain. At the end of a long corridor, they found another set of heavy doors. Unlike the entrance, these were sealed tight. "Can we open them?" Day asked. Hahn examined the control panel beside the doors. "There's still power here. Minimal, but active. Something has kept these systems running for centuries." He pressed several buttons. Nothing happened. June stepped forward, studying the symbols above the panel. "I think this says emergency cold storage. And here," she pointed to small writing below, "I believe these are numbers. A code, perhaps?" She entered the sequence. With a groan of ancient mechanisms, the doors began to slide open. Cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of chemicals and preservation fluids. The room beyond was vast and dark. As their lights swept, across it reflective surfaces glinted back at them. Hundreds of metal pods filled the space, arranged in perfect rows. "What are they?" Hahn whispered. Dai approached the nearest pod. A layer of frost covered a clear section on top. He wiped it away carefully and stepped back in shock. Inside the pod lay a creature, Small with soft-looking skin and no protective scales, it had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head with facial features not unlike their own, though smaller and more delicate. Its chest rose and fell in the slow rhythm of deep sleep. "It's alive," Day breathed. "A living human." The massive chamber fell silent as Commander Day entered. His 4 arms were steady, but his inner hearts beat rapidly. This was his moment of truth. For 20 cycles, he had studied the ancient texts found in the ruins of Ardania. Most called him obsessed. Perhaps they were right. June checked the control panel of the pod. They're all alive, in some kind of suspended animation. According to these readings, they've been like this for over 400 years. Han looked uncomfortable. These are the great warriors? These small, soft creatures? How could they defeat the Void Horde when our strongest fighters cannot? Day studied the sleeping human's face. It looked peaceful, yet somehow determined even in sleep. The Ardanians never said humans were physically imposing, he reminded them. They said humans were clever, unpredictable, that they saw solutions where others saw only problems. He straightened up. "Contact the ship, tell them to prepare the medical bay. We're bringing one of them back with us." "Just one?" June asked. "For now," Day said. "Let's see if the legends are true before we wake." An army. As they carefully disconnected the pod from its systems, Day wondered what they were really bringing aboard. A savior for their people, or something else entirely? The medical bay of the Seeker hummed with activity. The human sleeping pod sat in the center, connected to the ship's systems. The crew had been taking turns watching, waiting for 3 days. "Are we sure the revival process is working?" Day asked. He hadn't slept much since they brought the human aboard. June checked the readings again. "Yes, Commander. The pod's systems are slowly warming the body and removing the preservation chemicals. According to these indicators, the human should wake soon." Day nodded and continued his silent watch. He had selected a male human, according to what they could determine from the pod's labels. The records had suggested that human males were often their warriors, though this wasn't always true. Medical Officer Sun entered the bay, checking the human's vital signs. "Remarkable," she said. "Their body structure is so different from ours, yet somehow familiar. No protective outer shell, very thin skin. But their internal systems are quite efficient." "Will he survive the awakening?" Day asked. "I believe so," Sun replied. "Though how a being so physically vulnerable could be a legendary weapon remains beyond my understanding." A soft beeping sound came from the pod. The 3 aliens turned quickly to see the human's eyes moving beneath closed lids. The small chest began to rise and fall more rapidly. "It's happening," June whispered. The human's eyes opened suddenly. They were dark brown and immediately alert. Before anyone could speak, the human sat up with surprising speed. He looked at the 3 aliens, then around the medical bay, taking in every detail. "Hello," Day said, activating the translation device they had prepared based on language samples from the Earth facility. "You are safe." The human stared at him. Then, to everyone's surprise, he spoke. "Where am I? What are you?" His voice was calm despite the situation. June stepped forward. "You are aboard the research vessel Seeker. We found you in suspended animation on your planet Earth. I am Science Officer June." The human studied each of them carefully. "Lieutenant Jin of Earth Defense Force, North Pacific Division." He looked down at his body, touching his arms as if making sure they were real. "How long was I asleep?" The 3 aliens exchanged glances. Day decided honesty was best. "According to our calculations and your planet's records, approximately 430 of your Earth years." Jin's face showed no reaction for several moments. Then he closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, there was pain there, but also determination. "Everyone I knew is dead then," he said simply. "Why did you wake me?" "We need help," Day explained. "I am Commander Day of the Galactic Confederacy. Our worlds are under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat, the Void Horde." Jin's eyes widened slightly at the name. "The Void Horde. I know that name. They were coming toward Earth when we initiated the slumber protocol." He paused. "What happened to Earth? To humans?" June answered gently. "We found only the facility, where you were sleeping. The cities are in ruins, reclaimed by nature. We detected no other human settlements." Jin nodded slowly, processing this devastating information. Then he surprised them all by swinging his legs over the side of the pod and standing up. He was indeed small compared to them. The top of his head barely reached Day's shoulder, but he stood straight and moved with confidence. "Show me your ship," he said, "and tell me everything about this void horde." Over the next few days, Jin adapted to life aboard the Seeker with remarkable speed. He learned to use their technology, studied the layout of the ship, and absorbed information about the Confederacy and the current state of the galaxy. "Your species is incredibly adaptive," June told him one day while they reviewed star charts. Jin shrugged. "We had to be. Earth wasn't always kind to us. Neither were we kind to each other. We learned to survive, to change, to find new solutions." "Is that why the Ardanians called you weapons?" Han asked. He had been skeptical of Jin from the beginning. "Weapons?" Jin looked surprised. "We weren't weapons. We were allies, partners. We helped them think differently about combat." Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the ship. Han rushed to a communication panel. His membrane turned pale with fear. "Commander! A Void Horde scout. Ship has detected us. They're approaching fast." Day's hearts raced. "Battle stations, prepare for emergency jump." But Jin stepped forward. "Wait, let me see the enemy ship first." On the bridge, the tactical display showed the approaching Void vessel. It was dark and irregular in shape, covered in technology that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "I recognize that design," Jin said quietly. "We encountered them before the slumber." The ship shuddered as the Void Scout fired its first shot. Warning lights flashed across control panels. "Jump engines damaged," reported the navigator. "We can't escape." Fear spread across the bridge. The Void Horde was known for taking no prisoners. Jin stepped up to the weapon controls. "May I?" Han hesitated, then moved aside. Jin studied the unfamiliar system for only moments before his hands began moving across the controls with surprising confidence. "Their ships have a weakness," he explained calmly as he worked. "A resonance point in their shield harmonics. If you time your shots precisely—" He fired. The shot was much weaker than the Confederacy's standard attack pattern, but it struck the Void ship at exactly the right moment in its shield cycle. The enemy vessel shuddered and drifted. "Now," Jin said, "we can escape, or we can finish them." His eyes met Day's. "Your choice, Commander." In that moment, Day understood what the ancient texts had meant about humans. It wasn't their physical strength that made them formidable. It was their minds, their ability to see patterns that others missed. "Finish them," Day ordered. "Then set course for Confederate space. The Council needs to meet Lieutenant Jin." The Seeker moved through space at top speed, racing back toward Confederate territory. In the ship's main meeting room, Jin sat surrounded by the senior crew. For 2 hours, he had been explaining human warfare concepts. Many of the aliens looked confused. "Let me understand," said Officer Han, his membrane flashing with frustration. "You're saying that sometimes the best attack is no attack at all?" Jin nodded. "Exactly. The Void Horde expects direct confrontation. Their whole society is built on it. They don't understand deception or misdirection." Day watched the small human with growing respect. Since defeating the scout ship 5 days ago, Jin had spent every waking hour learning about the Confederacy's military tactics and sharing human strategies in return. "The Void ships are stronger than yours," Jin continued. "Their weapons are more powerful, but they always follow certain patterns. They're predictable. Humans learned long ago that when facing a stronger enemy, you must be unpredictable. But our battle doctrines have been refined over thousands of years," Han objected. "Our formations are mathematically perfect." "And the Void Horde knows exactly how to counter them," Jin replied calmly. "Perfect patterns become perfect targets." In another part of the ship, June made an important discovery. She rushed into the meeting room, her membrane bright with excitement. "Commander, I've translated more of the Earth facility's records." She placed a data tablet on the table. "These aren't just random humans we found. They were specifically preserved for a reason." Jin leaned forward. "What reason?" "According to this, Earth knew the Void Horde was coming centuries ago. They couldn't stop them, so they created the Slumber Protocol. They chose their best soldiers, scientists, and leaders to sleep until they were needed. June looked directly at Jin. You were part of a last resort plan to save your species. Jin was quiet for a long moment. How many of us are in those pods? Just over 2,000, June answered. The human closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his face showed a new determination. 2,000 isn't enough to rebuild a civilization, but it might be enough to stop the Void Horde. Later that night, Day found Jin in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The human stood very still, his small frame silhouetted against the vastness of space. You should rest, Day said. We'll reach Confederate space tomorrow. I was thinking. About Earth, Jin replied without turning around. About how it looked from up here. All those ruins covered in green, nature reclaiming what we built. I'm sorry about your world, Day said. Jin finally turned to face him. We had our time. 400 years ago, we were reaching for the stars, making our first colonies on other planets. Then the Void Horde came to our part of space. The Ardanians found you first. Yes, they were good allies, but too few to help us save Earth. Jin's eyes were dark with old memories. We knew we couldn't win, so we made a choice. We hid some of our people, hoping someone would find us someday. Someone who needed us. Like us, Day said softly. Jin nodded. Like you. The next day, the D. Seeker entered Confederate space. Warning signals immediately flooded their communication systems. Day ordered them displayed on the main screen. 3 Confederate border planets had fallen while they were gone. The Void Horde was advancing faster than anyone had predicted. The Council was calling all ships back to defend the core worlds. Show me the battle patterns, Jin requested. Han brought up the tactical displays. They watched recordings of recent battles. The Confederate ships fought in perfect, beautiful formations, and they died in those same perfect formations, overwhelmed by the chaotic, relentless attacks of the Void Horde. Your people fight like it's a dance, Jin observed. Everything coordinated, everyone knowing their place. It's impressive, but... It's not working, Day finished. Jin pointed to a specific moment in one battle. Look here. The Void ships broke formation to pursue individual targets. That created a weakness in their left flank. If your commander had sent even a small force to attack there, they could have cut the Void fleet in half. But that would have broken our own formation, Han said, though his tone was less certain now. Exactly. Jin smiled slightly. Sometimes. You have to break the rules to win. The Council's summons came as they approached the capital. Day was ordered to bring the human directly to the emergency session. As they prepared to board the shuttle that would take them to the surface, Jin stopped at the viewport for one last look at the stars. What are you thinking? Day asked. I'm thinking about how strange this is, Jin replied. My people slept for centuries waiting for a second chance, and here it is, but not how we imagined. We're not saving Earth. We're saving someone else's. Worlds. Does that bother you? Jin turned away from the stars. No, a second chance is a second chance, and the Void Horde is everyone's enemy. He straightened his borrowed uniform. Let's go convince your council that humans are worth waking. As they boarded the shuttle, Day felt a strange new emotion. Hope. For the first time since the Void Horde returned, he believed they might actually survive. The council chamber was packed with officials and military commanders. Jin stood in the center, looking small among the much taller aliens. Council leader. Nari stared down at him from her elevated platform. So this is a human, she said, her voice carrying throughout the large room. This is the legendary weapon Commander Day traveled so far to find. Some of the council members whispered to each other. Jin heard their doubt, saw it in the shifting colors of their membranes. He remained calm, standing straight with his hands behind his back. I am not a weapon, Jin said clearly. I am a soldier. My people were allies to the Ardanians, not tools. Councillor Min leaned forward. Yet you claim you can help us defeat the Void Horde? You, a single member of a lost species? Before Jin could answer, the large doors at the back of the chamber burst open. A military officer rushed in, his membrane flashing emergency colors. High Council! The Void Horde has entered the New Haven system. They've bypassed our outer defenses. The room erupted in panic. New Haven was one of the most populated colonies, home to millions of Confederate citizens. Its loss would be devastating. "How long until the defense fleet arrives?" Nari demanded. 6 hours, Council Leader. "But the Void will have established orbital control by then. We've lost 3 ships already trying to slow their advance." Day stepped forward. "Council Leader, let the human help. Let him show you what he can do." Nari looked from Day to Jin. What could one small being possibly do now? Jin met her gaze. "Give me command of a ship. Just one. Let me show you why the Void Horde feared humans enough to hunt down our allies." After a heated debate, the Council reluctantly agreed. They were desperate enough to try anything. Jin was given command of a small patrol vessel, the Swift. It carried only 20 crew members and minimal weapons. Day volunteered to go with him as his second-in-command. "This ship is not built for battle," Han warned as they boarded. He had insisted on joining them, despite his doubts. "It's designed for speed and stealth, not confronting Void dreadnoughts." Jin smiled. "Perfect, that's exactly what we need." The Swift raced toward the New Haven system. On the bridge, Jin gathered the crew and explained his plan. Most looked confused, some openly skeptical. "This goes against everything we're taught," said the pilot. "I know," Jin replied. "That's why it might work." They reached New Haven just as the Void Horde was establishing its blockade. 12 massive black ships surrounded the planet. They were arranged in a tight formation, their weapons charged and ready. "They're waiting for our main fleet," Day observed. "They want a big battle." Jin nodded. "And we're going to disappoint them." He turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to all Void ships. Make sure they can understand me." The crew stared at him in shock. No one ever communicated with the Void Horde. They didn't negotiate. They only destroyed. "Channel open," the officer said hesitantly. Jin cleared his throat. "Attention Void Horde vessels, this is Lieutenant Jin of Earth. Yes, Earth. You remember us, don't you? The ones who taught the Ardanians how to hurt you." Silence followed. Then a harsh, grating voice responded. "Human, your kind was eliminated. Your world burned." "Not all of us," Jin replied calmly. "And now we're back, with new friends and new ships." He nodded to the pilot. The Swift suddenly accelerated, diving directly toward the largest Void ship. At the last possible moment, they veered away, skimming along its hull. "Fire," Jin ordered. The Swift's small weapons targeted a specific point. On the Void ship. Not its main systems, but a seemingly unimportant section near the rear. "Now get us out of here," Jin told the pilot. "Maximum speed." The Swift shot away from the Void formation. For several seconds, nothing happened. The crew held their breath. Then the targeted Void ship suddenly listed to one side. Its lights flickered. The other Void vessels broke formation, moving to protect their wounded flagship. "What did you do?" Han asked in amazement. "Their command and communication systems are always in the same location," Jin explained. "Hidden but always there. A design flaw they've never fixed because no one has exploited it before." For the next hour, the Swift played a dangerous game of hit and run. They never attacked head-on. They used the planet's moon for cover, struck from unexpected angles, and always targeted the same vulnerable systems. Confusion spread through the Void fleet. Their perfect formation fell apart as they tried to track the small, fast Confederate ship. They fired massive weapons into empty space, while the Swift slipped between them. In the Confederate capital, the Council watched in stunned silence. On their tactical displays, the mighty Void Horde, which had destroyed entire defense fleets, was being thrown into chaos by a single small vessel. "I don't understand," Councillor Min said. "They're barely damaging the Void ships. Why are the Void responding this way?" "Because they're afraid," Nari realized. "They recognize human tactics. They remember. By the time the main Confederate fleet arrived, 3 Void ships had retreated from the system. The others were scattered, their formation broken, their coordination shattered." The Swift docked with the flagship. Jin and Day were immediately escorted to the command deck. The Confederate admiral stared at the small human in disbelief. "How did you do this? We've lost dozens of ships trying to fight the Void Horde." Jin looked tired but satisfied. "You tried to match strength with strength. That never works against a stronger enemy." He pointed to the tactical display. Look at them now, confused, scattered, vulnerable. Hit them, Day urged. While they're disorganized, show them what the Confederacy can do. The Admiral gave the order. The Confederate fleet attacked, using Jin's suggestions to target the void. Ship's weaknesses. Within hours, the battle was over. New Haven was saved. Later, back in the council chamber, Jin stood again before the alien leaders. This time, there were no whispers of doubt. The council has reached a decision, Nari announced. We will return to Earth immediately. We will wake the other humans from their long sleep. She looked directly at Jin. Not as weapons, but as teachers. As allies, Jin bowed his head slightly. That's all we ever wanted to be.